Hey guys, so this is Sony's most anticipated phone in years, the Xperia 1 Mark II. Now, odd name aside, this phone has received a lot of positive press since it was announced. After using it for some time, it definitely was up to the hype for me. This is the first time in nearly 6 years that I switched to a Sony phone as my daily, but it is pretty expensive, and I'm going to discuss if it's worth spending $1,200 on. First, I think this is the most well-rounded phone out there. The specs are important to mention because it offers nearly everything and fits it all into a beautiful looking phone. So on the front we have a 6.5-inch OLED 4K display. Above it there's an 8MP camera. On the back the One 2 has a quad camera setup with standard telephoto, ultra-wide, and depth sensors. On the inside we have the latest Snapdragon 865 and 8GB of RAM. The phone also has a 1/4 TB internal storage and microSD card support. The battery is a big upgrade over the Xperia 1 at 4000 mAh. Unlike the international version, the US version I'm reviewing does not have 5G, but it is compatible across most networks. The One 2 also is water resistant and has wireless charging, a side fingerprint scanner, front-facing stereo speakers, and USB Type-C. And believe it or not, the headphone jack is back. It even has a notification light, which is extremely rare now. This phone checks off the most boxes of any phone. Now on paper those are excellent specs, but as you've seen with the Galaxy S20 Ultra's broken 108MP camera, specs are definitely not everything. Fortunately Sony did not try too hard with experimental tech with this phone, and went with what works. So let's start with the phone's most experimental tech, the 4K 21:9 display. It's pretty crazy that Sony is still the only company releasing phones with 4K displays. Yet here we are nearly 5 years after the release of the Z5 Premium. Overall this is a great looking crystal clear display, but there are a few caveats to that. So for one, the screen is pretty dim in direct sunlight. Here's a side by side with the Pixel 4 XL, which doesn't have that bright of a display, but it is still brighter. The One 2 also has a normal refresh rate of 60Hz rather than a high one like some other recent flagships, though Sony has implemented some software to make it feel more like 90Hz. The 21:9 movie aspect ratio takes some getting used to, but I definitely am used to it, and I will say that this is actually my favorite aspect ratio. So just for example, I like how on social media I can do less scrolling, because there's more information on screen. Also for gaming this works extremely well, because most games have a lot of on-screen controls. Now between the aspect ratio, the excellent chipset, the front-firing speakers, and the design, this is my favorite phone for gaming. The design is more comfortable to me than last year's Xperia 1 due to a slightly smaller size and easier to grip shape. The design overall is beautiful and is arguably the nicest looking phone. I also really enjoy handling the phone overall, so the fingerprint scanner on the side is in a perfect placement, and unlike the Xperia 1, this one is also the power button, so that to me is a huge deal and makes the phone a lot more accessible. The scanner itself is also more accurate than in-display fingerprint scanners, and it feels a lot more natural. But like Sony's other phones, its accuracy level is still not 100%, so it's not perfect, but I really like the placement. It's not as futuristic as the in-display ones, but it does work better, and when you're unlocking your phone a bunch of times each day, of course that's more important. The 4 types of rear cameras used are exactly what I and most others wanted. So in the past Sony went with some odd choices, such as a black and white camera on the X2 Premium, but this time Sony chose the best type of cameras. Now despite Sony creating camera sensors for a lot of brands including Apple, they've been criticized a lot in the past for not having the best software on their own smartphones. Recently though, Sony has consolidated their studios to work closer together, and it does show with the cameras. Now I'm much more into recording videos and taking photos, and to be honest I've never really been that big on manual modes, which are a big selling point for this phone. But that said guys, there are a lot of manual controls to work with in the Photo Pro app, and both the results and the controls are impressive. The standard point and click camera mode, which I use really 95% of the time across my phones, does work pretty well. The phone also has a camera button, which allows you to access the camera when the phone is locked, and also take photos rather than pressing on screen. It's a great experience taking photos with the phone, and I'm showing you guys some of those now. Now, for the main sensors, the Pixel 4 XL is still my favorite phone for taking photos, but the One 2 is near the top of my list. With the Sony, you can also take some wide-angle photos, which you can't do on the Pixel. Nighttime shots are a bit underwhelming compared to phones with proper night modes, but if you want to use the Photo Pro app, then you'll get the shot you're looking for. As for videos, I'm very satisfied with the results, and I will be using this phone a lot for recording my YouTube videos. The footage is super smooth, the autofocus works great, and the audio quality is super accurate. Besides some excellent output from both the video and the audio, this phone has a lot of flexibility when switching modes. So just for example, in most flagships, you can't film with the wide-angle camera in 1080p 60fps mode or in 4K mode, but on this one you can. It also has a far more in-depth Cinema Pro app, which is tailored towards recording movie-like videos, and that one offers a lot of options such as 4K 60fps. Now the front camera outputs some very solid footage, but this is one area where the options are limited with only Full HD, 30fps available. Sony definitely put their time and resources into the rear cameras this time, but it would be nice to get a software update with more options for the front camera. Now the software is nearly stock Android, which is exactly what I want. Overall the UI is very similar to Xperia phones in the past, but that's definitely not a bad thing. Sony has eliminated most of their own apps over the years in favor of the stock Android apps, so for the most part I do like that, as a lot of them felt like bloatware duplicates of the Google apps. But that said, I do miss some of the Sony apps, including the album and the screen recorder. Now Sony did tell me that if enough users want the album app to come back in the future, then that is a possibility, though I think most people have switched to Google Photos regardless. Overall, the performance has been excellent for everything from simple day-to-day tasks to complex gaming. Now, of course that's expected given the Snapdragon 865 and 8GB of RAM, but it's so important to note this is the best performance you can get in June of 2020. Now for the dual speakers. So if you watch my comparison versus the iPhone 11, you wouldn't notice that while the quality is great, the volume does not get nearly as loud as the iPhone. That's actually both true and false. I just found out that Sony limits the volume in certain apps in favor of balancing and optimizing the speakers. So for a video app like YouTube, which I demoed, they focus on quality and balance because usually you're holding the phone and relying on the stereo aspect while using it. While for an app like music, you typically use that one as a loudspeaker, and the volume for those music apps gets much louder. In other words, the speakers are capable of getting super loud as the iPhone, but depending on the app they're often limited in favor of balance and quality. They still get loud, just not super loud for some of the apps. Overall, the speakers are amongst my favorites. They output great quality and are balanced and front facing, and for those reasons I enjoy using it when watching videos or playing games. Last year's Xperia 1 had a mediocre 3200 capacity battery, and it also lacked wireless charging. The One Mark II corrects those major problems by putting in a 4000 capacity battery and also wireless charging. That said, the battery still isn't great like most of its other features. It's an average battery at best by 2020 flagship standards, but it still should get you through the end of the day without any issues. One reason I didn't use the Xperia 1 as my daily was because of the poor battery, but thankfully that's not the case this time. Now I'm gonna say it once again, Sony deserves a ton of credit for bringing back the headphone jack. I was critical of them these past few years for removing it, but I'm very surprised that it actually returned. That's something that just doesn't happen with other companies, and is a cherry on top of an overall excellent package. It's a sign that Sony is actually listening to criticism, for the first time in what seems like forever. The worst thing about this phone is the price. At $1,200 this is Sony's most expensive phone ever, by $200, though if you pre-order in time it does come with an excellent pair of free wireless headphones, which retail for $230. Now, to me personally, it is worth spending that money, and I think for a lot of you guys, a lot of you enthusiasts watching, I think it'd be worth spending that money too. But for most non-enthusiasts, I would recommend waiting for a price drop or two before spending money. It's really tough to justify spending $1,200 on a new phone, no matter how great the phone is. Overall, this is my favorite phone. What I really like about it is it offers everything I want, and it really doesn't have any major downsides. Not only does it offer nearly every possible feature, but further all the features are at least solid, with most of them ranging from great to excellent. Just for example, I was using the Pixel 4 XL before this, and while that is a great phone, it's lacking many things the One Mark II has, such as a wide-angle camera, micro SD card support, notification light, a headphone jack, a premium design, or even a large enough battery. I can make the same argument for most other phones. Sony sent me this phone to review, but after I return it, I will be buying it myself to use in my daily on Verizon. I already have it pre-ordered and will be making a lot of videos after it launches on July 24th. I'll also be posting a ton of 1-2 content on Twitter and Instagram, since this will be my daily driver for the foreseeable future. Be sure to check out my comparison with Apple's best iPhone, and as always, thanks for watching.